Have you ever felt like your brain is stuck on a single frantic track? You are trying to focus, but your mind is caught in a continuous, distracting loop that simply refuses to power down. For many people, these loops take the form of intrusive sexual thoughts. They flood the mind during the workday, hijack daily routines, and often drive compulsive behavioral habits, like frequent masturbation or an over-reliance on pornography, just to silence the noise. Generating constant thoughts in response to external stimuli is the normal human baseline. We encounter dozens of new people and situations every day, and our brains are biologically wired to process and react to all of it. The most common advice for dealing with this specific kind of distraction is also the least effective. You are usually just told to stop thinking about it. But the psychological reality is that humans cannot forcefully block their own thoughts. When you actively try to suppress an idea, your brain has to constantly check if you are still thinking about it, which only amplifies the obsession and locks the thought deeper into your mind. This animated diagram shows exactly what happens instead. Because suppression is biologically impossible, the only effective way to regain focus is to completely dismantle this underlying cognitive habit cycle. The first tool to break that cycle is cognitive redirection. Cognitive redirection is a psychological strategy where you actively shift your attention away from an unwanted impulse toward a more constructive task, negotiating with the brain rather than fighting it directly. This timeline graphic illustrates the tactic in action. When an intrusive thought hits, you acknowledge it, but consciously decide to reschedule dealing with it for later in the evening. This active delay prevents the immediate spike of dopamine. By telling your brain, "not right now," you shift out of instant gratification mode, buying yourself the necessary bandwidth to prioritize your immediate, essential tasks. Mental delay works best when paired with a physical barrier. To disrupt the behavior phase of the loop, you have to introduce physical friction. For most people, the smartphone is a frictionless gateway to pornography. The rule here is strict physical separation. Keep your phone entirely out of your bedroom and dining areas, charging it in a different room altogether. Creating physical distance will not prevent every single relapse. However, by forcing your brain to get out of bed, walk down the hall, and retrieve the device, you insert a physical pause that drastically weakens the automatic power of the habit. Delaying the internal thought gives your mind a pause, while external barriers give your body a pause. Together, they transform a compulsive, rapid-fire reaction into a conscious choice that you can actually interrupt. The external environment also plays a massive role. Physical isolation acts as an acoustic echo chamber for the mind, whereas single looping thought has no competition and quickly deafens everything else. Moving out of that isolated space and sitting with family or friends forces a neurological pattern interrupt. When you engage in unpredictable, real-time conversations, your brain is forced to generate fresh responses and process new information. This external data rapidly overwrites the looping sexual narratives playing in the background. But the hardest time to find a distraction is at night. Many nighttime compulsions are actually rooted in fractured sleep architecture. Sleep architecture refers to the basic structural organization of normal sleep, including the cycles of REM and deep rest. When people struggle to fall asleep, they frequently use masturbation as a biological tool. The resulting massive release of dopamine and endorphins acts as a heavy sedative, forcing the brain to shut down. The healthy biological substitute for that chemical hit is intense physical exhaustion. Engaging in rigorous exercise or yoga during the day aggressively drains the body's energy reserves. This split-screen line graph compares the two processes. A physically exhausted body completely bypasses the need for chemical sleep aids, shutting down the loop's trigger before you even hit the pillow. Over time, the nervous system adapts. It unlearns the association with sexual stimulus and relies entirely on natural, physical tiredness to initiate rest. By thoroughly exhausting your muscles during the day and actively keeping your mind engaged with others, you effectively starve the habit loop of its two primary fuels, physical isolation and insomnia. Sometimes behavioral adjustments and environmental changes are not enough. When a neurological loop has been reinforced daily for years, the grooves in the brain are deeply entrenched. When self-regulation fails, clinical psychologists utilize targeted interventions like decentration therapy. Decentration therapy is a cognitive behavioral technique where patients learn to observe their own thoughts from a detached third-person perspective, rather than accepting them as urgent commands. Rather than just masking the impulse or hiding the trigger, this specific therapy actively challenges the legitimacy of the intrusive thoughts, stripping away their emotional weight. Seeking professional help from a therapist is a structural, scientific solution for a behavioral addiction. It is a necessary medical step, not a sign of moral failing. You regain control by combining these layers of defense, strategically delaying the mental impulse, engineering your environment to add friction, and exhausting your body for sleep. No one is permanently at the mercy of their intrusive thoughts. With the right internal habits and external architecture, the cycle can be systematically broken.